I wanted to do a quick video in showing how I replaced my low beam main headlights for at least my 2001 Polaris Sportsman 500 HO. I'm pretty sure this would apply for other variants of the same type of model for headlight, but mine is specifically a 2001. When I first bought this quad, it was pretty okay condition, but these headlights didn't work at all. It turned out that the bulbs in the back here were actually blown out. So I was trying to think of a way that I can actually have these work again, but also be upgraded a little bit and not these stock ones. If I did shine these up to look new, these would kind of still look a little bit old school, even though the quad is old school. I wanted it to look new. So I went ahead and bought these Nilight, this side, small LED bars. Now I can go ahead and put the description in the description, the part number, or at least I can put the link for this in the description. Now, one of the things that I had to research was to make sure that this was not overrated in watts for the original OEM head. Looking it up on the listing, it says 120 watt. But looking at other people's reviews where they actually went ahead, measured it themselves, they actually found that this headlight drew 20 watts or something per pod. Since I got two in the set, it would be about 40 altogether or something close to that. Nevertheless, it was close to the original set, which was about, I think, 60 watts altogether, so 30 watts between the two. This was lower than the original OEM stock ones. That they say that they're rated for a certain wattage, when in reality, they're not. Actually, much, much lower than that. I could actually go ahead and test this, but I'm not. I've done this before for another quad that I have for Yamaha. Not this specific light, but for another light to make it look nice. Actually light up when it's dark out. The first thing that you got to do is actually take off the headlight. We're at the quad now. The way that I did it is I just took out the rack, which I believe for mine, T27 fits the best for those four Torx bolts. Take out those four, and this just lifts right on. Over here where the headlight sits, you'll find the wire harness. And you unclip the wire harness, and then it's pretty much fully detached from the ATV except for this front mount, which you can actually see the front mount. You can access it through that hole and this hole with a long socket. You can put an extendo and a 1/2 inch, and you should be able to slide it right through there. I used an impact right here and was able to zip it right off, and I zipped this one right off. And once you take both of those off, they literally just come right out. Make sure to take the nut so you can reuse it again. And it'll look something like this when all the mounting brackets and the light bulb is still in. So I first thought of try to actually mount it with the original mounting hardware instead of drilling into the actual bumper. But since I didn't want to do that, I was brainstorming. I realized that this mounting bracket for the original light can actually fit in between the fins between this one and this one. There's a little bit of wiggle room, but it can fit. So I know it might be a little bit painful since this is brand new, but what I did is I took a cutting wheel and I cut it off right there, right above the corner, and right there, right above the corner. So the mount slides right in between right here. So ideally, the mount will slide right in, and you can kind of see it down below and up top. A little bit of wiggle room, so you'll have to use some washers as some bushings for when you put the bolts right through. The reason why I cut this part of the housing out is to allow the mount to actually swing out and actually point out in the original direction. And I can still be able to turn it like I originally can with the original OEM one. The next thing is be able to drill the hole. The way that I did it is I lined this bracket up exactly where I wanted it to be. It's a small drill bit as a pilot hole to drill all the way through and right out to the back. The way that the correct distance that you're doing it, you should pass right over this bolt right here. And then with another drill bit, I went back through it, made the hole wider, and then you put a couple spacers right here, and you just slide the bolt through and you put the nut on. So now that the actual mounting for the light is figured out, I needed to figure out how to actually wire this in. I had to keep the OEM connector, and the way that I did it was probably a bit unorthodox and maybe not 100% the correct way to do it, but still the way to do it, is that with the light bulb that comes in it, one of the regular light bulbs and an LED one, you can see that the light bulb actually comes out of the housing by just pulling it straight out. And so my idea was to use the light bulb itself and keep it in the housing for the light bulb that the light bulb came with, and then somehow affix these wires to this light. Again, another unorthodox way of how I figured out how to do it, or at least my way, was to go into the trash can, hover this over in the trash can with the lid covered, and take some pliers and just gently squeeze on the glass bulb right here until it breaks. And then once it breaks, you'll have those two test leads, that one right there and one right there, and they correspond to the one right here and the one right here. Now that the glass is broken, I straighten out those leads and I actually put a connector on them, kind of as seen here. I put the connector on, I crimped it, I heat shrunk it, put some more heat shrink on top of it to give it a little bit more rigidity, and put it back in. And so now when I plug it in, it should work perfectly fine. One thing you want to make sure is that you plug in the right wires to the right one. It won't really mess anything up if you reverse the polarity, but you still want to make sure you have the right one. What I did for my first one is that I used these connectors that you slide in, and once I crimped them down and heat shrunk them, I made sure that they were opposite to each other. So I can't accidentally plug in the wrong wire to the wrong lead and have it not work. So that's just an extra little precaution, just make reassembly a little bit easier if I ever have to take it off again. This is the actual one where I did drill through. I know it doesn't look the best. I could sit here and bend back the fins a little bit and clean up the holes. I know it's not the prettiest and I could pretty it up more, but you're never gonna see it and it's gonna do its job. What matters is the face. The thing I wanna know is make sure when you line up your holes to drill the hole to put this mounting bracket on, make sure that the curved part here, right here, it curves, and make sure that is pointing outwards, because that gives you the little bit extra clearance to be able to actually have this be straight and parallel with this. For me, I added a spacer on the top and the bottom when I put the bolt through, so it's kind of a little bit low and hitting right here. But if I put more spacer, washers, whatever you want to call them, towards the bottom here, it would raise this whole bracket up a little bit more. So you have a little bit more clearance there, and so it'd be able to have me swing this out more in parallel. But for where it sits right now, it being pointed slightly askew and not perfectly parallel with the front of the bike is perfectly fine with me. That's kind of how I like it anyways. But yeah, that's just a tip that you have to keep in mind when you start drilling. Now with one headlight fully completed, I went ahead and quickly spray painted where I had to cut with the cutting wheel. But I put the bolts on, all the spacers, and I went ahead and put on the actual connector itself, and I wrapped it up in, it's called rubber tape. I had to buy it when I had to go and repair my well pump down on the bottom of the well. I had to pull that thing about 500 feet out of the ground. So I'll go ahead and mount this up for you guys and show you guys how it actually looks. And then I'm gonna go finish the other one and hopefully call it a day. One last thing I thought of before putting this on. Make sure when you guys drill those holes and you cut off the bracket around here, it's on the right side. You guys get a better idea of what exactly I'm talking about here. When I first started doing this, I cut the hole on the bracket on the wrong side. So now the wire is out here and I'm gonna have to feed it back around. It isn't a huge deal just because the wire will be tucked away a little bit nicer and it'll just look slightly cleaner. Just keep in mind, if you buy these Nilights, they are exact duplicates. So you won't get one light with a wire coming out this side and another light with a wire coming out the other side. Both the lights that you get have the wires coming out to the left, at least this orientation to the left. All right, just to at least show you guys what it looked like with it plugged in and everything. This is kind of what it looks like. This is kind of how bright it is and what you're going to be working with. That's pretty much it. I'll go ahead and finish up the other side, finish up the mounting bolt on that one. But yeah, I'll show you guys a video of it at the end of how it looks like when it's all finished. And hopefully this is helpful for anybody that actually wants to upgrade their headlights and not spend like $300 for somebody that makes it specifically for this ATV. And I know that spending, I think it was like 25 bucks for the pair, and if you have a couple extra connectors lying around and some heat shrink, you could probably make this work. But either way, here's a cheap setup. Make the quad a little bit nicer. Even though it looks droopy right now, it's going to look much nicer. So guys, this is kind of how it looks after they're both put in. They are pretty damn bright, but I think it looks much cleaner than that OEM style. And hopefully this helps somebody make the decision on trying to go ahead and upgrade their headlights without having to spend the $300-400 bucks, however much they are, for somebody that actually makes them specifically for this model bike.